Vinod Deshmukh, and it is a pleasure to meet you, sir, during this session. Dr. Vinod Deshmukh, he is a neurologist by profession, did his MD in general surgery, and then later PhD from Glasgow. And then he has moved to USA, and he's been there since 1973. And he has worked in different universities in the US, especially in the University of Florida College of Medicine, University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston. And his major contributions, apart from his profession as a neurologist, are in the field of neuroscience and philosophy of consciousness, meditation, neuroscience, meditation and consciousness. And he has published several books and over 70 research articles in esteemed journals. And he has been bestowed with many prestigious honors and awards. And some of them are, I will cite, Outstanding Achievement and Performance Award by the University of Florida, the John A. Bells Award for Medical Research from Florida, Albert Nelson Marcus Lifetime Achievement Award, and so on. So it's a pleasure to invite you, sir, to this conference, and invite you to deliver the talk on meditation, mind and brain from craniospinal organization. Over to Dr. Vinod Deshmukh, sir.
So can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. So I want to start by stating that meditating is returning to, merging and refreshing from the restful, serene and infinite source within. The self-integration and self-immersion is the key to pristine, insightful and creative self-awareness. It is intrinsic self-freedom and bliss. It is life itself. I want to start with my own personal experience that happened just this last Wednesday, October 7th. I woke up fully awake and refreshed, full of energy, awareness and being. It was like an incessant fountain of fresh energy and awareness. There were no thoughts, memories, desires, plans, goals, or actions. All was well in itself. Nothing needed to be done or changed. Breathing was slow and periodic, with effortless long pauses. It was absolutely calm and quiet. Body was still, mind was silent, and the self was at ease with itself, as if it didn't exist separately. There was no ego, self-center, or self-pride. This is how it was happening at that moment. It was good as it was. All of my faculties were intact and working. I could see, hear, touch, and smell. I could move my hands and touch my forehead. All this started before 6:12 a.m. and I got up happily at 7:18 a.m. Now I'm doing my routine of journaling, yoga, pranayama, and meditation. That clear and precious experience and the feeling of wellness, aliveness, beloved presence, joy, and the cheerfulness continued. I don't live on memory. I'm fully with it. I felt relaxed, alert, and normal. For me, this was a meditative experience. Historically, meditative experiences have been described in many ways. Turiya, the fourth state of unity consciousness, was described in Mandukya Upanishad. Atmaiva sammishati atmanatmanam. Self merges in itself. In Bhagavad Gita, Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. Self is contained in itself. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, Tada Drashtu Swarupi Avasthanam. So it's also seen in Shankaracharya's Aparokshanubhuti, Ashtavakra Gita, Jnaneshwari, and many more texts on Advaita Vedanta, Yoga, and Buddhism. It is described as Samadhi, Nirvana, Shunyata, Purnata, Jagruta Sushupti, Pradnya, Atmabhav, flow state, and much more in different spiritual texts and traditions. It is also described in modern literature as the non-dual awareness, self-transcendence, choiceless and timeless awareness, content-free consciousness, effortless being, the existential ground, ocean, the multisensory space, psychophysiological resting state, and the pristine loving presence with a spontaneous feeling of joy and holistic unity. I published an article in 2004 on Turiya, the fourth state of consciousness. In that article, I proposed that Turiya was a unique conscious state of non-rapid eye movement wakefulness, NREMW, and it is characterized by an optimal attentiveness with freedom from daydreaming and intrusive thoughts, behavioral quiescence with no internal speech or rapid eye movements, heightened perceptual clarity with moment-to-moment cognitive excellence, and an enhanced sense of well-being, serenity, compassion, and creativity. So we can look at 4 states of consciousness, not the conventional 3 states. The REM sleep and the REM wake state are high-frequency states. In REM sleep, there is dreaming, provoked feelings, autonomic activation, and a strong sense of agency and individual experience. In REM wakefulness, which is the common wakeful state, we have wandering mind, streams of thoughts, several conscious contents, provoked feelings, ups and downs in our feelings, and there is a duality of self and other. There is always an interaction with, again, a strong feeling of individual agency and individuality. In non-REM sleep, of course, there is no dreaming. There is no sense of agency. There is calm and quiet. And what is interestingly shown recently, there is synaptic remodeling, reorganization of the whole electrochemistry of the brain with consolidation of adapted memories and skills, with resolution of subconscious conflicts and deeper emotional reactions. In non-REM wake state or Turiya, non-wandering mind and minimal or no conscious contents, thoughts or memories, imaginations or provoked feelings, there is spontaneous homeostatic feeling of blissful wellness and non-dual awareness. One is at ease with oneself and at home in the natural reality. It is a self-immersed existential experience. I also publish articles on conscious and pre-conscious aroused aware being. The brainstem extended reticular activating system, including the pedunculopontine nucleus, is a neuroelectrochemical powerhouse of our brain mind. It is continuously active in our daily life during all 4 stages of consciousness, namely dreamless sleep, dream sleep, thought-filled wakefulness, and thought-free non-dual awareness. It provides the neurophysiological basis of non-specific global consciousness, aroused aware being. It is the substratum of our specific individualistic conscious and preconscious mind. It is self-effulgent like a wellspring within. It is our spontaneous, self-illuminating, ever-present and homeodynamic, pristine flame of arousal awareness within. The famous Vedic statement, Ekam Jyotihi Bahuda Vibhati, one holistic energy manifests in many forms and many ways in this phenomenal world. Preconsciousness and the gamma activity has been recently shown in the brainstem by this Urbano et al. Group in the pedunculopontine nucleus. So you can actually record gamma activity in the neurons of the pedunculopontine nucleus, which is then transmitted to the cerebral cortex as the reticular activating system. Reticular activating system is, of course, very active during wakefulness as well as REM sleep. In addition, the RAS modulates virtually every system in the brain, which has implications for voluntary movement, behavioral state, and synergy with other homeostatic systems like the circadian rhythms, hormonal, and appetite control. But the authors are suggesting that the cortical gamma band activity participates in sensory perception, problem solving, and memory. But the gamma band activity in reticular activating system may participate in the processes of preconscious awareness and provide the essential stream of information for the formulation of many of our actions. That is, the RAS may play an early permissive role in volition, our will. In neuroscience, the neural circuits have been defined now for the REM sleep as well as wakefulness. There are several brainstem, midbrain, and brainstem nuclei with specific neurotransmitters which are released and which activate the neocortex. This is the pedunculopontine nucleus, tegmental nucleus, which the gamma activity has been shown. And of course, there is gamma activity in the cortex when there is perceptual sensory integration and action. Non-REM sleep has also been shown. The neural circuits are shown in the brainstem as well as in the cortex. In the non-REM sleep promoting pathways, the ventrolateral and median preoptic nuclei are prominently active, which then inhibit most of the other nuclei and networks in the brainstem, including locus coeruleus, parafacial zone, parabrachial nucleus, pedunculopontine nucleus, raphe nuclei, ventral tegmental area, tuberomammillary nucleus. So it's a very complex neural network in the brainstem. It's amazing how all this happens. There is also involvement of neuronal nitric oxide synthase neurons. And there is overall calming of the cerebral cortex and the thalamocortical system. One of the ways may be that is the reticular nucleus in the thalamus which is activated, which then releases GABA, and then the GABA inhibits or calms the cerebral cortex as a whole, including the hippocampus, which is the source of many memories. What is fascinating, some of the mechanisms of breathing, for instance, it has been quite a puzzle what really initiates or ignites our breathing. And one of the current theory that it is the hydrogen ion or the proton, which is the primal stimulus to the chemosensitive area postrema in the medulla, which then initiates a cascade of activity to generate the central pattern of breathing. In this sense, water serves as an essential fuel for breathing and many other biochemical reactions in the human body, which is an amazing living organism. Here you can see H-ion, pre-Botzinger complex, series of nuclei, finally the phrenic nerve nucleus, and the generation of rhythmic breathing. It is a divine gift to all of us, all living beings. Slow, deep breathing. Slow, deep breathing, especially with a wholehearted smile, like this one. With a wholehearted smile or even a laughter is very effective in calming brain-mind. It reduces stress, anxiety, and lowers blood pressure and heart rate. It is a part of yoga and many other meditative practices. It is also called the cardiorespiratory resonance breathing at 0.1 hertz or 6 breaths per minute, compared to the normal shallow and fast breathing at 12 to 15 breaths per minute. Here I want to show you that this is normal breathing and this is slow deep breathing. And there are two types of pulmonary receptors, the rapidly adapting receptors, which are active in both types of breathings, but the slowly adapting receptors come only into effect and activity in hyperinflation or slow deep breathing. Similarly, the baroreceptor activity is more in slow deep breathing, and the respiratory sinus arrhythmia is more in slow deep breathing compared to normal breathing. The lung volume is also increased during slow deep breathing. I just want you to focus that all the vagal stimulation, central vagal stimulation from the rapid as well as slow adapting receptors and baroreceptors stimulates the nucleus tractus solitarius in the medulla, which then inhibits locus coeruleus, central nucleus of amygdala, and paraventricular nucleus of hypothalamus. And all these then produces an overall inhibition or cortical calming in the thalamocortical circuit. NTS is also connected to the pre-Botzinger complex with the central pattern generator. So slow deep breathing produces a meditative state by three different mechanisms. One mechanism is through the NTS and the amygdala and relaxation. Second mechanism through the respiratory center, locus coeruleus, and attentiveness or alertness. And thirdly, a nasal pathway through the olfactory bulb, hippocampus, consolidation of memory and skills, and the synchronized slow cortical rhythms as seen in meditative states. This is a fascinating research. It was amazing that these people could do this invasive study in a way in an epileptic patient. These are two different epileptic patients, patient A and patient B. In patient A, preoperatively for surgery for epilepsy, they had introduced 20 different intracranial electrodes, with each point being a point of recording. So they had 320 recordings from the whole brain, both gray matter, white matter, as well as CSF. Here you can see the green area, which is superior temporal gyrus, and the red area, which is hippocampus. And this is an electrode with all these points of contact. They found gamma activity only in the gray matter, not in the white matter or in CSF. So they came to the conclusion, Herrera et al., that his group found that breathing could act as a hierarchical organizing principle for the neuronal oscillations throughout the brain. They demonstrated gamma activity in several areas, including frontal, premotor, orbitofrontal, motor cortex, insula, superior temporal gyrus, and amygdala during volitional breathing, and in anterior cingulum, premotor, insula, and hippocampus during breath awareness, as in pranayam and mindfulness. One of the fundamental questions that we all face is, how is mind related to the brain? How does mind emerge from the brain? And this question has been addressed by almost every scientist from all different fields, including quantum physics. Here is the latest article in quantum physics in which they propose a perspective on the brain and mind, in which they propose a model in which there is a field within field, an electromagnetic field within an electromagnetic field. So the brain produces an internal physical space-time with extracellular fluid around the neurons, which then create an operational space-time, which is a linking mechanism or the interface, or I call it the membrane. And then that produces or emerges a phenomenal space-time, which is our whole experience, both internal as well as external experience. It's an amazing concept to think that our essential nature is probably primal energy, including electromagnetic energy and photic energy. Talking about electromagnetic energy, we need to realize that it's a very powerful source. And recently it has been shown that the electromagnetic field in an MRI scanner can induce a transient nystagmus in healthy volunteers. This is explained by the influence of Lorentz force on the ionic flow in the endolymph of the inner ear. This is the magnetic field. This is the endolymph in utricle, ion currents endolymph, currents of potassium ions, sodium ions, calcium ions. So these are actually, these flow of ions is influenced by the magnetic field, by the Lorentz force. And there are several interesting articles on that. This, of course, occurred more during a very powerful magnet, which is 7 Tesla, not the usual 1.5 or 3 Tesla magnets. Another approach to mind-brain interaction was proposed by Northup and his group. What he suggested, he in fact proposed a new neuroscience called space-time neuroscience. So spatio-temporal integration, he calls it the neuromental integration. The self integrates its brain function, including decision-making, attention, and reward processing. And all this electrochemical activity from the brain generates this sense of self and the mental activity. During meditation, traditionally, these 3 ways, if the common state of mind is this mind wandering, in which there are multiple contents in the brain mind, including visual, auditory, and somatosensory, and they are rather chaotic, disorganized, hardly any control or order in it. And there is a broad present awareness. There is no focusing. In open monitoring or open mindfulness, there is order in the mind, in that all these sensory stimuli are ordered in certain way and processed in an orderly fashion. And in focus attention, there is a single stimulus or a single object which is being meditated on, which may be an image, a thought, an idol, or just simple breath awareness becomes this. So this goes by Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, that is dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. In samadhi, the classic description is swarupa shunyamiva. samadhi, as if the individual agent is not there. It is selflessness, self-transcendence, self-unawareness, self-immersion, or the wholeness of being. As the Zen saying goes, to study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by all things. I love that statement. Now, Goldstein from National Institute of Autonomic Nervous System recently proposed a central stress system and the extended autonomic nervous system. By extended autonomic nervous system, he includes not only the sympathetic, parasympathetic, but also neuroendocrine and neuroimmune systems. And this normally results in behavioral and peripheral adaptation. The practice of yoga and mindfulness meditation helps this process of adaptation to overcome stress. The stressors act on both the systems, the sympathetic system with locus coeruleus and norepinephrine, which release catecholamines and peripheral adaptation, corticotropin releasing hormone, which secretes ACTH, glucocorticoids, and then peripheral adaptation. And this also feeds into the behavioral adaptation. What has been described is central autonomic network. The central autonomic network is not only in the hypothalamus and the brainstem, but also in the cerebral cortex, including medial prefrontal cortex, precuneus, anterior cingulate cortex, insular cortex, thalamus, and the hypothalamus. Also, what is not shown in these diagrams is amygdala and hippocampus. In meditation, we learn the skill of self-regulation. And the self-regulation includes attentional control, emotion regulation, and self-awareness. And it is a process, it's a learning process. We start in the early stage of effortful learning and doing, in the middle stage, effort to reduce mind wandering, and in the advanced stage, it becomes effortless being, effortless performance. As some of you may have seen, Nadal played his final game, a final match in the French Open. It was unbelievable. Or Federer playing in Wimbledon. Brain regions involved in mindfulness meditation. This has been demonstrated by functional MRI. The areas commonly involved in meditative states is insula with interoceptive experience, posterior cingulate cortex and precuneus with self-perceptions and self-related processing, anterior cingulate cortex with self-monitoring, prefrontal cortex with decision-making based on values or valence, amygdala for threat processing, and ventral striatum, including nucleus accumbens, for pleasure processing or processing of joy. There is a nested hierarchy of conscious and voluntary decision-making and behavioral control in frontal lobe networks. The very basic network is sensory motor control. A level above that is the contextual control, in which we take into consideration what happened just before and then act based on the context of the situation and hopefully the consequences of our actions. And the third level is the schematic control, in which we have a goal or a purpose or intention to achieve something. So this is the highest level in the prefrontal cortex. There is also the executive functions processed in the frontal lobes. The key function in this is the working memory, inhibitory control, reasoning, maintenance of information, task switching, and also planning. It is the working memory that helps us to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or to sequence our words in a sentence, or making a cup of tea, we sequence our actions. All this sequencing depends on the working memory. In patients with Alzheimer's disease, when the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is damaged, working memory doesn't work, and such a person is unable to make a cup of tea for himself or herself. It's unfortunate. There is a self-other duality. The temporoparietal junction of the brain is the region where the distinction between self and other is proposed. This creates the experience of duality. In the unitive state of meditation, this distinction is transcended or minimized. This is supramarginal gyrus, angular gyrus, Wernicke's area, superior temporal gyrus, and this oval is the region, is the temporoparietal junction in which self and the other interactions are processed. With functional MRI, many functional activities have been demonstrated. I think speech is extremely important, both what we say to others and also what we say to ourselves is crucial because that is a strong stimulus that generates either positive or negative feelings. So it is very important to realize what you're saying to yourself. Don't dwell on too many negative things. Stay positive and try to solve the problem. Stay present, stay problem focused, present focus, and try to solve the problem both for yourself as well as for the community. These are the functional changes between speech versus rest, speech versus tongue movement, speech versus lips, speech versus monotone, speech versus singing versus resting state, or reading versus resting state. I want to point out that it's not only the cortex, but also the brainstem and the subcortex or the precortex, I would like to call it, is involved in subconscious or preconscious processing. This is the region of superior colliculus and the periaqueductal gray, which has been shown to be linked to the default mode network, and this is triggered in post-traumatic stress disorder. A patient may not be consciously aware of it, but his body responds to the threat stimulus in PTSD with the activation of this midbrain region. Of course, the midbrain region, including superior colliculus and periaqueductal gray, are the survival networks. They are absolutely essential. Our very survival depends on that. This mouse, for instance, when he notices an eagle flying up in the sky, he has to take instantaneous action, either run away, hide, to save himself. Otherwise, he is dead. There is no time to think or hesitate. So this is the direct path. If there is little more time, then he can consult with the amygdala or the ventral tegmental area and then come to a decision. And then the periaqueductal gray then initiates a locomotor response. There is a center, mesencephalic locomotor center, which initiates all whole body activity, including walking, running, swimming, speaking, etc. I want to share, this is a very fascinating and my favorite way of doing meditation is to walk in nature. Nature experience reduces mental rumination and prefrontal cortex overactivation during nature walks versus urban walk. This was recently shown beautifully in Stanford University article. This is the region where the overactivation is minimized and the mind wandering is reduced. You can see a big difference between nature walking versus the urban walking. So I take a holistic ecosystemic perspective where brain is embodied, body is embedded in personal environment, and the personal environment is of course part of the world, cosmos or universe. So the whole mind or the cognitive system is embodied with a bidirectional exchange of energy, matter, and information. I want to end my talk with a simple journal entry that I wrote on October 15th, just 2 days ago. Holistic existence in nature. I exist in nature. I exist in reality. Every breath or move breaks its stillness. Every sound or word breaks its silence. Every form or image breaks its space. Just by staying still, quiet, silent, and serene, one finds oneself immersed in reality. Reality is everywhere all the time. It is self-sentient, self-powered, and self-effulgent. It is filled with beauty, goodness, peace, and bliss. It is a blessing to be immersed in reality. It is a holistic existence and experience. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you, Dr. Vinod Deshmukh, for that very insightful, very deep talk on neuroscience of mind-brain interaction and how like how we go through the different states of consciousness and accordingly how the brain activity gets modulated. And also you talked about we can also achieve through physiological mechanism, we can also achieve the meditative state. So such a wonderful system we have, the
Thank
human
you. Thank
actually.
you.
There are so many questions regarding, Turiya, NREM, awareness. So you can take some few questions, sir, actually. We have still 10 more minutes time. So you said, during NREM, it is a non-specific global consciousness, like we are into that state of consciousness. So is one aware of external stimuli more than awake state in that particular NREM state, Turiya state, what you say?
Yes,
And there is one more relevant question regarding NREM only. Awareness needs subject object split.
yes.
How in NREM state we can have non-dual awareness?
Well, that is the $1,000,000 question, as they say. Right? But it is something similar to like falling asleep. You see, when you fall asleep, it is natural, spontaneous. There is no, you just fall asleep in the non-REM sleep.
Yeah,
If you are aware of it, then you are not asleep. You are still thinking. So in the same way, when I walk in nature, I forget myself. I'm
yeah.
so completely absorbed in the natural beauty that I'm not there. I just love it. I'm
Even
just in a state of bliss. And that is true for whatever activity you choose. When you are playing tennis, like Nadal or Federer, they don't think about it. They just go with the flow. It has also been described as the flow state. And that is true. It's a great, great state. It's a dynamic state. It is true living, complete living. And it is amazing. It does happen. It does happen. You have to let go. You have to take a deep breath, smile wholeheartedly, and let go. Like this picture I showed you.
very good.
I
You have sent
was
me that
just
picture.
I was just standing under the gulmohar tree that I had planted. And it's such a happy moment. Beautiful. We got the seeds from Florida Keys and I planted the tree. from seeds. And it's a huge 5 big trees now in our yard. I loved it. And I was so happy. I was not there. We can say I was there and I wasn't there. It's a matter of what you think, who you think you are. As Raman Maharshi always, who are you? It's the same thing. Koham.
True, it's true.
Kene Shitam. Preshitam Manaha. So we have been asking these questions. And of course, India has been the land, the motherland of meditation and these self-inquiries. So I'm very proud of the Indian culture.
Yeah. One more question, sir. This is, can you elaborate on perception of time and consciousness?
Okay, that's a good question because we are kind of so used to thinking in terms of time. Also, we are almost addicted to words and numbers. You see, as J. Krishnamurti says, we are slaves to words. You see, words are just symbols. There is nothing, there is no truth or reality in words. When you say the word lion, it means nothing to the actual fact of lion. So the same is true. So in a way, in meditation, you have to kind of minimize the words, minimize the internal talk, internal speech, learn to be quiet and silent, learn to be at ease with yourself, drop everything, don't hold on to anything, and let go. And there it is. The truth is always there. The bliss is always there. You don't have to go there. There is no path to yourself. That is the beauty of it. There is no, if somebody tells you, I want to go to myself, how can you go to yourself? You are yourself already. So that is the fact of it. That is the truth of it. And it does happen by really being so completely, passionately involved in the activity that you choose to do at the moment. Being fully present, fully, wholeheartedly present in the moment, with full attention, full passion, complete heart and mind in the moment that you are involved in, whether it is nature walk, whether it is swimming, whether it is walking, running, painting, singing, whatever you are doing. That is the wonder of it. That is the beauty of it. And it is the meditative state. That is Turiya. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Intense meditative state, modulate brain functions. And accordingly, we will be in that highly blissful state of consciousness.
I hope so.
So you can achieve either, you can just, release everything. It is a release phenomenon, actually.
It is.
Don't hold anything.
And
And
it
then
is,
you can be in that state of blissful state.
and it is self-refreshing. The whole electrochemistry refreshes. That's what happens in non-REM sleep. It is refreshing. All the negative molecules are removed. You know, cortisol, adrenaline, catecholamines are all removed. And the brain is refreshed, mind is refreshed. Synaptic rekindling, synaptic remodeling.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sir, one more question, sir.
Okay, okay.
This is about your nature walk versus urban walk.
Oh, yeah.
So some, some of the participants want more details about, the
Okay.
nature walk versus urban walk.
Okay, that study was performed in Stanford University. And
Ah.
Stanford University has a beautiful campus, if you have been there. So what they did, they chose volunteers, students from college students, and they specified the route to go along the nature trail, take photos, up to 10 photos, and then come back, and then they did their MRI before and after the nature walk. And the other group, control group, they sent it to the downtown city center in Palo Alto, and they spent the same amount of time, took photos of different flashlights and shops and whatnot, and then finally they had MRI before and after. And they compared the two, and I've given the reference of the Stanford study. You should look it up. It's amazing. It's wonderful to see that finally nature, Mother Nature, is the great healer and the inspirer for all of us. So walk in nature, spend time in nature, appreciate the natural beauty and the wonder that it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for
Thank
that
you.
insightful and very lucid presentation on self-consciousness, mind, brain.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and please be online.
Okay.
We have two more wonderful talks. Please be with us.
Yeah,
Thank you
I
so
look
much.
forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Um, Now, the next speaker in this symposium is Professor Narayan Srinivasan from IIT Kanpur. He's a good friend of mine, and he has